Alright. One package today. One of these days, I expected the media would stop coming out. Quite sad. But, whatever. It just feels like I could have gone through. Hopefully they still make money. So first up we have Quality Assurance in Another World. The complete season. Yeah, I suspect it didn't finish after the first. It's, first of all, regions A and B. Should be an English dub. Yeah, there's an English dub. There was something about it that was definitely a unique world, but I guess, I don't know. There was some sort of element to it that was a little off-putting to me, and I'm not sure if I can exactly elaborate what. It's not necessarily bad, but I just can't help but wonder what it is. Maybe it's because things were happening. Like, I see a couple characters there that I don't recognize, which might be from the later half. But something about it just sort of didn't feel completely purposeful, I guess. Which isn't necessarily bad. I mean, there's plenty of shows now, and here we've got a Blue Lock episode, Nagi. This one's also regions A, B. English and Japanese audio options. Feature and bonus. Okay. But yeah, for some of it, I guess we'll just have to see her. I'll try to talk about them a bit when get to them talking about them. This one had a card. Same as the art there. But pretty straightforward. I do believe this is a movie. Yeah, it says movie right there. Movie and bonus features all in one disc. Who'da thunk it? But yeah. It's a little update, but it's still here. Here's this week's Physical Anime Collection update. Alright, we've got most of the new season started up. Let's begin with the things that weren't scheduled on well, okay, technically they're scheduled on Friday, but that's not scheduled when they come out. They are, me watching stuff with my Friday friend. There's Kaiju number 8, season 2, episode 23, which ends season 2, what's come out. Don't think I have any particularly new thoughts, Again, the entire second season feels very different, set up for whatever's going to happen in season 3, I guess. I did more research, and yeah, there was not going to be an episode 24. I kind of expected as much, but double checked, and it's like, yeah, nobody's expecting any more episodes out. There's no talk about, oh yeah, it's just taking a 1 season break or something like that, so probably means we don't get anything until next year sometime. Well, I mean, at this point, if it's not this season, it's next year, but more like probably middle of the year next year. And hopefully season 3, like season 2, I feel didn't exactly lose me. It didn't have that same thing the first season had, and it's interesting because this is kind of reminiscent of Rising of the Shield Hero, which is the next thing. But, again, it wasn't a bad season 2, a lose your audience per se thing, but didn't necessarily had what made that first one completely great. Just other elements of it that are actually pretty great, but not that fucking awesome stuff. But yeah, now we're all waiting for season 3, so that means I am, y'all are, my Friday friend is, all of us waiting. But yeah, and since he's watched 3 seasons of Rising of the Shield Hero, and just, we can get through some torture stuff. I mean, we watched all of Naruto Shippuden, and I still say Three Tails arc. We definitely got tired from that and didn't continue on to Boruto. Maybe there's good stuff there, but with Rising of the Shield Hero, it's interesting because again, watching these first couple of episodes of season 4 again, it's not the most exciting material, but it's much better paced than the previous. much better paced and much better focused. Because, like, I feel like... Yeah, and I just watched a video just a little bit ago where somebody was talking about how Shield Hero dropped it, which I guess was kind of expected, and I think they knew. Because the main problem with Season 1 is if you only had Season 1 and you're like, man, it'd be nice if we ever got more of that show, it'd probably just stay pretty solidly in all of our minds. But Season 2, of course, crazy, quick, a little all over the place, a little bit, I don't know what to think about this, things just happening too fast. And Season 3 also felt fast, but also felt like it was more about introducing characters other than our main character, which kind of builds up the main character in a way, but not in ways that make us care. And, you know, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I'm pretty sure a lot of that is just because the people implementing the anime know that the manga had this problem, and that's why they're fast-forwarding through a lot of stuff. So the pacing feels wrong, but it feels like it needed to happen because after the stuff that happened in Season 1, it does feel like it would have been kind of meaningless schlock that kept going on. And it might have been more entertaining, engaging, maybe just not as good as the first season, but it does feel like they were fast-forwarding to get to more interesting stuff, which Season 4, I don't know if they've gotten to what they thought was the more interesting stuff, or if they're like, okay, Seasons 2 and 3 are really pissing people off, and not in the same way that Season 1 did, so we have to do that. But, you know, rewatching his first 2 episodes, you know, they felt better paced and more relevant, like stuff about the main character. But I digress. I'm not sure that I'll have really any big thoughts of Rising of the Shield Hero Season 4 as I rewatch it, but yeah. And then on my own, I watched Spy Family Code White. Because, like I said, I wanted to watch all of it, even though I knew this one I probably didn't need to going into Season 3. Although, you know, there's always a chance that Season 3 references it in small ways. And I don't think that necessarily makes it worth it, per se. But it was an okay movie. I guess in some ways, it tried to set itself up to give ourselves the best of the 3 main characters, but I think it loses some of the charm and the meaninglessness, I guess, to stuff. So it's kind of a, well, I guess the movie happens. I'm trying to think if there were some elements of it that stood out to me as particularly great, but I think it was okay. I think even like they gave your a real opponent to fight against, and for some reason it just didn't feel very your. Like, it didn't feel bad, but it just didn't feel like some of the your moments that we got from the show. And maybe that's the real problem, is because it wants to be a movie, so it wants to stand alone, so it needs to create a bad guy and a plot and an arc all around that. And it kind of loses some of the charm, because some of the charm of the original show is also that this stuff is going on, but people are trying to keep a low profile, and in this case, it didn't want to. But I don't know. Again, you know, it's whatever. Season 3, Episode 1 aired, and I, you know, reading this out of order, because I might as well talk about that since I'm here. And, let's see. I thought it felt a little bit better, but not necessarily great. But I think it's similar to the way the second season might have started, where it doesn't begin with something that's necessarily one of the big things. It's probably Season 3 is going to be a lot like Season 2 in terms of a bunch of sort of one-off things, I guess. But yeah, guess I don't have much other thoughts other than it's nice that it started back up again. Now, going back to the top of the list and going from top to bottom, Hero Without a Class, Who Even Needs Skills, Episode 2. It's okay, I guess. I mean, I told you what I think would have needed to happen probably beginning with episode 1 to really make it feel like a show with meaning, and as it is right now, it's just kind of doing its thing. Kind of okay, I guess. There's some elements of it that maybe not too surprising, which kind of also makes it spending as much time on that not the most engaging, but not necessarily bad. Just, I guess, okay, I guess. I can't think of anything else to really say. So I watched episode 1 of Past the Monster Meat Milady, and there's a chance I might not go on to episode 2. Well, we'll see what happens when the episode comes out and if the title piques my interest. I don't have anything else listed on Thursdays, so we'll just have to see. The main issue with it is actually interesting because this will be kind of like the opposite of the next series I talk about. The main issue with it is it kind of just doesn't lean into its premise enough with its characters' personalities. So, like, we were just talking about a medieval fantasy show, and then you got your medieval fantasy isekai, and you've got this common main character archetype in that one, where the main character is just kind of, okay, he's kind of just this slightly wimpy, sounding slightly unsure, sort of Japanese person, I guess, Japanese guy. You know, that archetype typical thing where it's like, okay, if he didn't have powers, cheat skills, then there would be no reason to watch this. So they didn't really make an interesting character so much as they just used the standard template. And, there's plenty of medieval fantasy and medieval fantasy isekai shows along those lines. And Past the Monster Meat Milady is pretty much a shoujo version of that, where they establish our main girl as pretty much being a revolutionary gourmand in their world, and considered quite controversial and conventional in that regard. And I think that's mostly fine as a concept. And the guy that falls in love with her is somebody that people have trouble approaching because he's known as bloodthirsty or something like that. But the problem is when he's not killing a monster, and when she's not, I guess, like, we haven't really seen how much she has some good knowledge of some stuff there, and some slightly unconventional takes on some normal interactions, but for the most part she's pretty close to just your stereotypical shoujo main character, and he's very close to your stereotypical boy in love, which unfortunately conflicts a little bit with the bloodthirsty supposed nature. And it's not necessarily bad, but it pretty much means that as a premise, it's not engaging. Like, I can't help but feel like if the first episode had been him remaining maybe unsure, weird about relationship-y sort of leanings, but leaning on, like, maybe if it leaned on, well, this is why he's always killing monsters, because, he's just bad at social interaction, or something weird like that. And if, even though she's at that place, she's kind of bored, instead of thinking about a whole lot of expositional, I kind of have to find a guy or something like that. If her mind was drifting, thinking about, like, novel things she's going to do when she gets back to do that, it's like, I gotta focus. And he kills a monster in front of her as events happen there. It shows she's a good person at heart because she helped the old couple, right? But then, instead of leaning into them just kind of awkwardly looking at each other, and I think there's things about that work, but it doesn't really lean into the premise as much as it really could have. So, like, what if instead she's like, wow, you're going to eat that dead monster? I don't know. It doesn't have to exactly be that. Maybe something like that, but that's just the thing. It's got a premise that feels like it should have something fun going on for it, but it doesn't seem to, as far as I can tell. So, that's that. But this next show, may I ask for one final thing? So we got 2 episodes of this, so not only did it have a banger first episode, but a really great follow-up second episode, which makes this show look like a real big fucking winner. Probably the biggest new show, I'm trying to think of it, it's the biggest of like returning stuff. But this one sets up the premise of she's been set up as if she's your stereotypical villainess. She's not. She's just cold, suppressing her emotions, and a little bloodthirsty. Yes. You know, I think her name was Scarlet. Good name for somebody who might have that sort of feeling. But, you know, everybody is being set up as pretty stereotypical, cliched, super bad guy. Oh, please, somebody save me. I'll even let you have some of my slaves. Oh, are slaves illegal in our country? Oh, well, it doesn't matter as long as somebody saves me. It's, you know, like, very ham-fisted, if that's the right word. You know, fun. I wouldn't even call that fun. The fun part is that it's like, all right, it's time to punch a bunch of people. It's like, yeah, you kind of want to see these cliche bad guys get punched. And she's very viscerally satisfying, and she executes it, and they do a really good job of explaining pretty much why it doesn't have any series-ending consequences, I guess. I mean, and that's where episode 2 comes in. That's really great because it shows that it's not just oh, she did this once at the very beginning of the show. It kind of shows we can expect it to be a thing where it's just like, no, I'm free now. If you don't want to be punched, then you probably shouldn't be an asshole. You know, something like that. There's some real righteous fury going on in here that's fun. It's being fun about it. It's fun. Very fun first 2 episodes. Next up, my gift level 9999 unlimited gotcha, backstabbed in a backwater dungeon. I'm out for revenge, episode 1. And here's one where it's like, okay, you really want revenge, but these characters are a little less cliche bad guy, and so much there's elements of it that are just unconvincing where you kind of want to see the revenge. I mean, yeah, it does a good enough job of giving us a revenge we want to see. But it's really weird the way it's setting it up in order to do stuff. It's also a little over the top in terms of how unfair of a world it is. I don't know. We really have to see past episode 1 whether or not it's satisfying or not, I guess. Things to think about. We got episode 13 of Secrets of the Silent Witch, which ended hopefully this season and not the whole show. I mean, if somebody said this was the ending of the show, that would be sad. If they said this was the only episode they could plan, you know, that would also be sad. But you know, chances are there's intended to be more material, to be a resolution, lots of things we want to see in that resolution. And for this one, I guess it just kind of okay. So it did set up a conflict that wasn't I wouldn't call it a big season finale thing, but it did kind of bring a bunch of stuff together, the conflict part. Instead, I would say that it did something that I would consider a pretty obvious direction in terms of touching moment stuff, and I was very satisfied that it did that and very happy to have seen it. Don't know if I want to elaborate any more on that because, you know, this was kind of a season finale or core finale, and I'm wanting more, of course, but, you know, just making all those notes. Let me see, we got episode 2 of A Wild Last Boss appeared. Trying to think if anything about the episode particularly stood out. I remember feeling less weird compared to the first episode. Like, the first episode had weird things to it, and this one isn't distracting with those too much, I guess. I remember certain bits and pieces of this episode, but I don't really remember. Oh yes, it set up that happening, and I guess it's okay stuff. Maybe not the most exciting stuff ever, but I'd say maybe not bad, not yet, not mediocre. So I guess we'll have to see what episode 3 brings us. The Banished Court Magician aims to become the strongest, episode 1. Now here's a really good example of that thing I mentioned with the medieval fantasy and medieval fantasy isekai MCs. He's like one of those stereotypical things, I guess. I felt like there were elements of this first episode that were just confusing. Elements that are just like, okay, yeah, banish, and so obviously they go with that trope of, yeah, that trope. But ultimately, I'm not sure. I felt like there were things about it that were confusing. It's like, I complimented a couple of shows last season, or maybe it was the season before. I think it was this last season, where it at least felt like there were more compelling reasons given for banishment story arc. And this one feels like he just dumped it. It's like, okay, yeah, I guess we kind of know after his banishment he's going to become an adventurer. But the way it makes it feel like some of the stuff they already revealed, it feels like he already was an adventurer. It's just like, well, okay. Still doesn't make sense why he is as unsure sounding as he was, or there's a lot of things it really needs to do right. And episode 1, I thought, started off to a rough start. So we'll have to see what further episodes bring. Tales of Weathering, season 2, episode 1. Like, I couldn't remember exactly what was the issue at the end of the first season. I tried to thumb through it a bit, but I don't know. I just didn't find the motivation to go back to it. Not that it was bad. It was just only okay. Maybe better than that. Maybe in an okay but not mediocre sort of way. And so I guess going beyond that, here in season 2, episode 1, I guess the character they introduced, it's like, oh yeah, I guess it was a show which had excuses to have naughty stuff happen. But there were things about this first episode of the second season that I thought were overall positive. Things that felt like, okay, they're setting up things for characters' growth that we can expect to see through this. Our main character is getting moments that don't make him seem entirely like a plug-and-play protagonist, which there were slight elements of that in the first season, I think, but also I remember the first season at least being good insofar as while he was developing a harem, this harem was definitively his harem and not some sort of bunch of girls sticking around to see who he chooses. No, he had one he chose, and the other ones are like, yeah, I guess we're just fighting for second place. Ish. Like, it's not exactly that, but it kind of had that vibe in good ways. And we'll have to see. Now, the big problem I'm seeing with season 2 so far is they're going back to the Elf Kingdom, and I really hated those pieces of shit. And I hope they go there and they find everybody dead, but then the one place they need to go, just there, find that problem, because fuck all those fucking assholes. But let's go to something more happy. To Your Eternity, season 3, episode 1. So, Fushi wakes up in very different time, something resembling a more modern world, with, you know, not exactly all the same workings of our main modern world. You know, there's some interesting differences, and obviously one of those is that he's there. But, you know, what does he do? He discovers boba tea, and I'm like, my man. It's something that's not even like a one-off in the first episode. It's comes up a couple of times, and it's just like, how very Fushi of him. It's fun. You know, there's some fun things they introduce, and some elements that they've set up, and I'm very quite curious about to see what's about to happen. Especially given the pretty crazy opening, which is usually a bit of a hint as to what sort of stuff we can expect. So, I'd say off to a good first start. I have here in my notes that My Hero Academia final season started, but, you know, since I started watching that dubbed, I'm waiting for the dub on that one. I'm going to watch that with my Friday friend whenever that starts happening. So, you know, chances are they'll probably dub episodes 2 weeks after they air, because it's either same week or a couple weeks later. We'll have to find out. But for those of you who were watching it subtitled and were waiting for the final season and weren't aware for some reason, like, how could that be? You're watching me. I'm like some weird corner of the internet. If you're watching me consistently, then you know My Hero Academia final season started Saturday. But anyways, I digress. Because I didn't actually watch that. Gachiakuta episode 13. This feels like it was supposed to be the core finale. Like, is this supposed to be a 24 or 26 episode series? I feel like it's 24, and I could probably go to the one website that I use to figure out what's about to come out, but the important thing is I feel like it was an okay episode. I didn't know how I would feel about it because I didn't really like the Amano character. Even if she had a tragic backstory, which she, of course, did, it's sort of like, yeah, she was kind of a bitch. For all the wrong reasons. You know, the sort of thing where it's just like, okay, yeah, you can have a tragic backstory, but at a certain degree, if you do something bad, I kind of want to see the main character get his fucking revenge. But I feel like this episode, while it was mostly centered around her, did a really good job of it making it be pretty much about the main character in kind of totality. So overall, you know, this show really does sit on something where it's just like angering for the sake of angering sometimes, and I don't know. I do feel like there's a theme going on, and I think we can look forward to more of it. So I guess off to a good start. Maybe this will be something that ends in a reasonable time, like a single 24 episode series. I doubt it, but you know, can always hope. Weird episode, but yeah. Next up is the first episode of Dad is a Hero, Mom is a Spirit, and I'm a Reincarnator. I guess there's no and in there. And Reincarnator is a really weird word because usually it's reincarnation, and maybe if they weren't wanting to reuse that word, it sounds like it's the same word that they used all the time in like, so I'm a spider, so what, you know, fine. I'd say all that. I'm not sure what to think about the first episode in total, because most of the stuff they set up as the actions that's going to happen strike me as more related to the dad than about the main character. You know, if the title is Dad is Hero, Mom is Spirit, I'm a Reincarnator, then obviously the Reincarnator daughter is the one that's the main character. Maybe she's not supposed to be. Maybe she's supposed to be the narrator talking about her dad, the hero, but it also doesn't feel like it's set up that way. It's strange. So, again, a really weird first episode where by the end of it, I wasn't quite sure what are they ultimately planning for the purpose of this show. But I can say that it wasn't necessarily a bad first episode. This is one of the few ones where I can say I thought the wedding scene at the midway point of the first episode was actually pretty neat and enduring in a lot of ways, which isn't necessarily the most I guess engaging thing to say a show would be about, but it is a plus, and I definitely want to see, you know, what they're going to do with episodes 2 and 3, so I know what kind of show this is. Because as it is right now, they've kind of set up what the characters are, but I don't have any idea what this actually means for what are they going to be doing? Why am I watching this show? What am I expecting? I don't know. Let's see. Next up we have A Gatherer's Adventure in Isekai, Episode 2. I guess stuff happens. It's okay, but again, no. It's definitely a very... Stuff is sort of happening. It's hard to say how much it feels like this stuff means something so much. It just has pieces in place that are entertaining, I guess, but still incomplete on their own. I think a good example is, you know, the character B, who's obviously an important character in the show. The character traveling with our main character, they're definitely supposed to be a cute thing, but you know, especially since we have Campfire Cooking in Another World Season 2 coming up, this is a good reminder of why sometimes these shows just really have very... They don't understand cute. Like, B is very surface level, shallow cute, I guess. At least that's how I was about to say he, but we don't know whether it's a guy or girl beast yet. Yeah, we don't know yet. That I don't know if that matters too much because it really depends on what the show's going to do. It's really hard to tell what the show's planning to do, but I don't know. It feels just very. Oh, we'll just make it say cute things and be. I don't know, some sort of cute stereotype. But Campfire Cooking in Another World, the slime. I remember that being one of the most endearing, cute things in a lot of anime I've seen. A real show winner kind of character. But this one doesn't feel like that, and there's just elements to it where it's just like, okay, he came out of the forest going in this direction, trying to head to a town. People going the opposite direction were seen in the distance, it seemed like. It's also possible I missed him turning around, but I think more likely they just didn't think about it. They just like, yeah, he's going to run into characters and they're going to think he's kind of cool. And then we saw Bee hiding in a way that we've never seen Bee hide before, and we've never seen how Bee interacts, and the character didn't comment on it. It just sort of did stuff. Because I guess stuff works. If this was a show that was really about how subversive this all is, and it's just some play pretend sort of world sort of thing, and our main character is just being deceived in some malicious way, it would be better. But I don't know that I'd like it, because I think the fundamental premise is fine. Anyways, weird show, lots of weird stuff. Next up is The Fated Magical Princess Who Made Me a Princess, episode 4, which I'd say is, so it's not leaning into what I felt like was the fundamental premise established in the first episode. It's continuing to not lean into that. It is continuing to be neat and endearing for reasons outside of that, but more set up by that. But I do feel like it's not really leaning into its foundational premise. Like 4 episodes in, it doesn't feel like it. Yeah. Oh well. But I still think episode 4 was actually quite nice. You know, I think it helps that it's a shoujo that's not about the main character being surrounded by a harem of guys. That doesn't make sense. It's kind of more about her being a child who maybe has some awareness beyond her age, but still very much acts her age. The implication that there's a reincarnation element there is just gone. But entertaining stuff. And then last but not least, we have My Status as an Assassin Obviously Exceeds the Heroes, episode 1. And it's an okay episode. I think it suffers mostly from, I don't know. I guess our main character, has the right idea that he's like, there's something weird and screwy going on here. And I think we all, as the audience, can appreciate that, but he goes from suspicious of things to not really. I guess maintaining a consistent persona, but they didn't really establish what persona to expect from him to begin with. And it feels like there's a couple of contradictory things in there. But otherwise, there's some fun, curious isekai elements in there. But it's really hard to tell from this first episode, what the fuck should I be expecting from this show? Like, I know they showed that thing at the very beginning, but I also don't know what the hell that means. It's so strange. Yeah, I'm not sure what to think about it. So, yeah, out of all the stuff I've watched that's new, definitely May I Ask for One Final Thing is topping the list there as fun. If I had to choose only one thing to watch, I'm trying to think if it would be that. Well, the problem is some of the new stuff or some of the new seasons of existing stuff. So To Your Eternity Season 3, I would probably highly prioritize over that. But fortunately, I don't have to choose one or the other. There's no monkey paw here. Yeah, sorry about cracking my knuckles there. I don't know if the phone camera picked it up. Got a little mentally distracted. Anyways, that's all that stuff. Do I have anything video game to really talk about? I guess Nintendo's really showing that they don't really give a fucking rat's ass about their customer base, do they? With the shiny distribution of the box art legendaries, so it sounds like there was a second, oh, GameStop, here's 50 more codes for you to give out. But these ones get printed on the receipt. Okay, fine. And when I talked to the GameStop employee, apparently, so while the first one was sold within like an hour, so all the card codes were gone within an hour, and that was probably because there was also distribution stuff related to the new card set, the Mega Evolution one that came out. That wasn't here this time, so instead of being gone the first hour, it was gone by the end of the first day. It's just like, does Nintendo just not want anybody to have this thing? Do we have scalpers who should themselves be scalped and hung from a tree for the betterment of society? I don't know. But it really does feel like that Nintendo fucked this up in a way that's just like, you know, I think I was mentioning last week, I was replaying Scarlet Violet stuff, you know, Raid stuff, and remembering those UIs are truly bad, and not because they were deliberately designed from the ground up to be as obviously bad as they could be. You know, I say those UIs are actually better than this because, you know, with those you can tell they give up instantly. This one, it's just like, you know, it keeps taking the health away, and this was just me even playing on my own when I knew I could probably beat the boss, but I had to know, okay, they just did a stat boost and they just attacked me, and I have absolutely no idea if they did tremendously more damage because it's not showing my fucking health bar. And this is just me playing single player versions of these things, and you know, it just feels like there's a list of stuff. Makes me not look forward to Pokemon Legends ZA, which I already had my trepidations about, not necessarily because of gameplay elements, but because Pokemon Legends was just being out in the wilderness and surviving, which feels more naturally Pokemon-y than this, which is advertising, ooh, you should participate in a tournament. It's like, fuck you, I'm not a competitive person like that. I'm the most tameable killer in Dead by Daylight, who doesn't just immediately not kill people. I mean, sometimes I immediately don't kill people anyways. It's more like, oh, you kind of don't want to be attacked? Yeah, sure, I can do that. You're probably going for like an iridescent emblem or something, then I can help with that. Or maybe you just need a breather. Or maybe you just like making friends with the killers. I'm okay with all that. Maybe I digress a little bit. Because if you're wondering if it sounds like there's multiple things, another thing that I just always found disappointing is it feels like I'm just never going to get a Diancie. It's a really beautiful Pokemon. You know, it'd be nice to put that in a box and never let it go. I guess I could get it by playing Pokemon Go, but I'd never be able to transfer it to the games where I would want to use it, assuming I wanted to use it. I'm not even asking for a shiny one. It's just like it was a mythical released one time. It feels like every other fucking mythical has been released since then except for Diancie. And I guess I'm also disappointed by the fact that Pokemon Go has Melmetal. I don't remember if that's the name of the pre-evolution or the evolution, but it's sort of like the problem with Pokemon Go is it really does feel like a cell phone game, and a kind of exploitative one in that regard, where maybe you could say the same exists for Pokemon, but really that only existed historically for Pokemon breeding purposes. But if you just played through the game, if you just wanted to collect all the Pokemon, there was actually a lot of just real fun game mechanics in there. You could build utility Pokemon that you never fought people with. But Pokemon Go just felt like Pokemon, the company, just needs to try to force us to. I don't know. It kind of makes me want to give up on it, which unfortunately, getting exhausted by it is why I missed the DNCA release a billion years ago, and why it's impossible for me to get it now. Who knows if all the things I got back then can even be transferred forward anyways. It's hard to know, hard to care. Hard to decide what to try to even work on. Is any of it worth working on? It's also tiring. Everything's so tiring. But, I don't know. Obviously, I'm going down. Let's go up, you know. I guess there's new Dead by Daylight Rift coming out. I'm looking forward to seeing what that's like. Just curious to see what behavior does in order to change things. You know, if they make it where the Rift is, like, even worse somehow than this previous one, you know, I'll probably just not care about whether or not I get it, because I don't want to suffer from FOMO. FOMO's fear of missing out. I don't know if I have anything else to really talk about. Let's go ahead and wrap this all up, you know. Looking forward to that, and if they have a release that fixes things, I'd be curious to see what they fix. Ending all that, y'all have a nice week.